had never been good at keeping his mouth shut. It was the thing that had made him famous in the comedy clubs of Austin, Texas. It was also the thing that had gotten him fired from 3 different jobs before the age of 30. Now, at 30 years old, he stood in the throne room of an alien empire and realized that his big mouth was about to cause an interstellar incident. The throne room of Prime was massive. The ceiling stretched so high that Dane could not see where it ended. Everything was made of some kind of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. The walls were carved with patterns that told stories Dane could not read. Thousands of stood and perked rows on either side of a long walkway that led to the throne. They were tall and elegant, with bodies covered in hard shells that shimmered like oil on water. Faces had large compound eyes and small mouths surrounded by delicate mandibles. They did not move, they did not speak, they simply watched. Walked behind Ambassador Carroll, trying not to trip on the ceremonial robe that the head insisted he wear. The robe was too long and too heavy. It dragged on the floor behind him like a wedding dress designed by someone who hated weddings. Ambassador moved with perfect grace, her silver hair pulled back tight, her diplomatic smile fixed in place. She had been doing this job for 20 years. She knew how to walk in alien robes. Dane did not. The delegation had traveled for 6 months to reach Prime. Earth needed the rare minerals that only they could provide. Without those minerals, humanity's expansion into deep space would stop. The fat and light engines that powered human ships required crystals to function. They had mountains of the stuff. They just had to be convinced to share. Sat on a throne made of black crystal. She was larger than the other, nearly 8 feet tall when standing. Her exoskeleton was darker than the others, almost purple in the blue light of the throne room. A crown of silver metal rested between her compound eyes. She had ruled the empire for 400 years. In all the time, no one had ever seen her smile. No one had ever heard her laugh. They did not do such things. They considered excessive emotion to be a sign of weakness. After stopped at the proper distance from the throne and bowed. Dane bowed too, or at least he tried to. The robe caught under his foot. He stumbled forward, arms pinwheeling, and barely managed to catch himself before falling flat on his face. A ripple of something passed through the watching. It might have been shock. It might have been disgust. Dane could not tell. Straightened up, his face burning red. The silence in the throne room was absolute. Every compound eye was fixed on him. Queen stared down from her throne with an expression that Dane could not read. Her mandibles moved slightly, but she said nothing. His mouth opened before his brain could stop it. It was a defense mechanism. When he was embarrassed, he made jokes. It was how he had survived high school. It was how he had survived his parents' divorce. It was how he had survived everything. Quietly, almost under his breath in English, he assumed no one would understand him. They spoke their own language, and the official translation was handled through devices that Ambassador controlled. His place, Dane muttered. Bit cold, though. Even the Queen's got a rear end like it's carved from ice. Did not know that they had universal translators implanted directly in their auditory organs. He did not know that every single being in that throne room heard his words perfectly. He did not know that he had just committed what they would consider an unforgivable offense against the crown. Silence that followed was different from the silence before. It was heavier. It pressed down on Dane like a physical weight. He looked up and saw that Queen had gone completely still. Her mandibles had stopped moving. Her compound eyes, which had been scanning the human delegation, were now fixed directly on him. Beth turned to look at Danny. Her diplomatic smile had vanished. Her face had gone pale. She knew something terrible had happened, even if she did not know exactly what Danny had said. Rose from her throne. The movement was slow and deliberate. Every in the room turned to watch the Queen. This was not part of the ceremony. The Queen was not supposed to leave her throne during a formal greeting. She was not supposed to approach visitors directly. There were protocols. There were traditions. There were 10,000 years of history that said the Queen stayed on her throne. Walked down the steps from her throne. Her footsteps made no sound on the crystal floor. She moved past Ambassador without looking at her. She stopped directly in front of Danny. He had to tilt his head back to look at her face. She was so tall. Her compound eyes reflected his own terrified expression back at him 100 times over. Her mandibles clicked together once, twice, 3 times. When she spoke, her voice was like stones grinding together. You said that about my butt, Earthling. Felt his heart stop. His mouth went dry. His brain, which usually supplied him with an endless stream of jokes and comments, went completely blank. He could not speak. He could not move. He could only stare up at the alien Queen who had just heard him make a joke about her rear end. After step forward. Your Majesty, please, I am sure there has been some misunderstanding. Whatever my colleague said, I am certain he meant no offense. Humans sometimes speak without thinking. It is a flaw in our species. Please, let us continue with the ceremony and discuss the matter privately. Did not look at Ambassador. She kept her eyes fixed on Danny. The throne room was so quiet that Dane could hear his own heart be pounding in his ears. He could hear the blood rushing through his veins. He was going to die on an alien planet because he could not keep a stupid joke to himself. Queen's mandibles clicked again. She leaned closer to Danny, close enough that he could see his reflection in her dark exoskeleton. Explain, she said. Explain what you meant by the comment about my butt. He swallowed hard. He looked at Ambassador, who looked like she wanted to strangle him. He looked at the thousands of watching in perfect silence. He looked back at the Queen. His mouth opened. Words came out. He was not sure if they were the right words, but they were the only words he had. It was a joke, Your Majesty. Humans make jokes when we are nervous. I was nervous. I tripped. I felt embarrassed, so I made a joke. It is what we do. Queen did not move. She did not blink. She simply stared at him with those enormous compound eyes. Joke, she repeated. Explain the word. Explain what a joke is. Realized in that moment that he was not going to die. At least not yet. The Queen was not angry. She was curious. And curiosity, Dane knew from experience, was something he could work with. Took a deep breath. Every eye in the throne room was on him. The Queen stood so close that he could feel the coolness radiating from her exoskeleton. Ambassador looked like she was calculating how quickly she could reach the exit. The thousands of watch in perfect silence, waiting to see what the strange human would say next. Joke, Dane began, is when you say something that is not exactly true, but you say it in a way that is meant to be funny. Humans laugh when we hear jokes. It makes us feel good. It helps us deal with difficult situations. Tilted her head slowly. The movement was small, but Dane noticed it. It was the first sign of something other than cold formality that he had seen from her. Say things that are not true, she said lowly, and that makes you feel good. This is confusing to me. The value truth above all things. We do not say things that are not true. It's not lying, Dan said quickly. It is different from lying. When I lie, I want you to believe something false. When I joke, I want you to know that I am not being serious. The humor comes from the gap between what I say and what we both know is real. Queen's mandibles clicked together. She turned and walked back toward her throne, but she did not sit down. Instead, she stood at the bottom of the steps and faced the crowd. Leave us, she commanded. All of you, I wish to speak with the humans alone. Did not hesitate. They turned and walked toward the exits in perfect order. Within minutes, the massive throne room was empty except for the queen, the human delegation, and the echo of footsteps fading into silence. Hector stepped forward. Your Majesty, I must apologize on behalf of the human delegation. My colleague spoke without thinking. His words were inappropriate and disrespectful. I assure you that Earth does not condone such behavior. We came here seeking friendship and partnership. Please do not let one foolish comment destroy the possibility of an alliance between our peoples. Raised one of her forearms. The gesture silenced the ambassador immediately. Not offended, the queen said. I am curious. In 400 years of rule, no one has ever spoken about my physical form. I am the crown, I am the throne, I am the empire. I am not a body to be commented upon. Your human did something that no one would ever do. He treated me as a person with a body. This is strange to me. Felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. He was not going to be executed, at least not today. It's comment on bodies all the time, he said. It is part of how we connect with each other. We know things about each other. We talk about those things. Sometimes we make jokes about them. It is how we show that we see each other as real people, not just titles or positions. Queen turned her compound eyes back to Danny. You said my butt was like ice. This is an insult in human culture, yes. Ice is cold. Cold is native. You were saying something native about me. He scratched the back of his head. This was the trick part. Explaining humor to someone who had never experienced it was like explaining color to someone who had never seen. So no, he said. On the surface, yes, comparing someone to ice sounds native. But humans have the thing where we sometimes find cold attractive. We call it being an ice queen. It means someone who is beautiful and powerful but seems untouchable. When I said your rear end was like ice, I was actually saying that you are impressive and intimidating. It was a compliment wrapped in what sounds like an insult. This is very confusing, the queen said. No, Dan agreed. Humor is confusing. It works because it is confusing. The surprise of hearing something unexpected is part of what makes us laugh. Laugh, the queen repeated. This is the sound humans make when they hear jokes. I have heard recordings of human laughter. It is a strange sound. It sounds like distress. It's not distress, Dang said. It is the opposite of distress. It is joy. It is release. When we laugh, we let go of tension and fear and worry, even just for a moment. It is one of the best feelings humans can have. Master cleared her throat. Your Majesty, perhaps we could continue the discussion at another time. The delegation is tired from our long journey, and there are formal matters to discuss regarding the trade alliance. Queen did not look at Ambassador. Her eyes stayed fixed on Danny. Formal matters can wait, she said. I have ruled this empire for 400 years. I have negotiated treaties with 100 species. I have commanded fleets and conquered worlds. But I have never laughed. I have never experienced this thing that you describe as joy and release. This interests me more than any trade agreement. Stepped closer to Danny again. Her voice dropped lower, almost soft. Well, teach me, she said. You will explain this humor to me. You will show me what it means to laugh. Blinked. Me, your Majesty, I am not a teacher. I am just a cultural liaison. Ambassador is the leader of our delegation. She would be much better suited to explain human culture. Ambassador did not make a joke about my butt, the queen said. You did. You will teach me. He looked at Ambassador. She gave him a look that clearly said he had gotten himself into the mess, and now he would have to get himself out of it. There would be no help from her. Okay, Dang said slowly. I will try, but I have to warn you, humor is not something that can really be taught. It has to be felt. You have to experience it to understand it. I will experience it, the queen said. You will stay in the palace as my guest. You will have 3 days to teach me about humor before the formal negotiations begin. If you succeed, I will consider your trade alliance favorably. If you fail, your delegation will leave empty-handed. Felt his stomach drop. The entire trade mission, the future of human space travel, the hopes of billions of people back on Earth, all of it now rested on his ability to make an alien queen laugh. No pressure, he muttered. Queen's head tilted again. What does this phrase mean, no pressure? There's another joke, Dan said weakly. I say no pressure when there is actually a lot of pressure. The humor comes from saying the opposite of what is true. Queen stared at him for a long moment. Her mandibles clicked. I do not understand, she said, but I wish to understand. You will begin teaching me tomorrow morning. A servant will show you to your quarters. Turned and walked up the steps to her throne. The audience was over. Danny had 3 days to teach an alien queen how to laugh. 3 days to save humanity's future in the stars. Ambassador grabbed his arm as they were led out of the throne room. If you mess this up, she whispered, I will personally throw you out an airlock. And nodded, he believed her. His private chambers were nothing like the throne room. Where the throne room was cold and formal, these rooms were warm and filled with soft light. Cushions covered the floor in deep reds and purples. Paintings hung on the walls showing landscapes that Danny did not recognize. There were plants in crisp pots, their leaves glowing faintly in colors that did not exist on Earth. Set on a cushion across from Queen. Between them was a small table with drinks that Danny was afraid to touch. He had been coming to these chambers every morning for the past 2 days. He had shown the Queen recordings of human comedians. He had explained puns and wordplay. He had demonstrated physical comedy by pretending to slip on an invisible banana peel. He had told her every joke he knew. Queen had not laughed once. Perfectly still as she always did, her compound eyes fixed on him, her mandibles occasionally clicking as she processed what he said. She asked questions. She took notes on a small device. She analyzed humor like it was a math problem that could be solved with enough study. Me again about the banana peel, she said on the morning of the 3rd day. Sighed. Person walks along not paying attention. They step on a banana peel. They slip and fall. Other humans laugh because they are relieved it did not happen to them. Also because the fall looks silly. Also because they have seen it happen in so many old movies that it has become a symbol of unexpected misfortune. But the person who falls could be hurt, the Queen said. Why would others laugh at someone who is hurt? Usually are not really hurt, and even if they are, the laughter is not mean. It is a way of acknowledging that life is unpredictable. Bad things happen to everyone. Laughing about it helps us accept the truth. Queen's mandibles click rapidly. This is what I do not understand. You say laughter helps you accept difficult truths, but they accept difficult truths without laughter. We accept that life is unpredictable. We accept that bad things happen. We do not need to make strange sounds to process these facts. He rubbed his face with his hands. He was tired. He had barely slept in 2 days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Ambassador's face and heard her threat about the airlock. That is the problem, he said. You accept difficult truths, but you do not release them. Laughter is a release. When we laugh, we let go of something. Fear, tension, sadness. The emotion leaves our body through the laughter. You hold everything inside. You process it, but you never let it go. Queen was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was quieter than Danny had ever heard it. Taught from birth that emotion is weakness. Who shows emotion cannot be trusted to lead, cannot be trusted to make good decisions. I have ruled for 400 years because I have never let emotion control me. I have never shown weakness. Lean forward. Do you feel emotions, even if you do not show them? Queen did not answer immediately. Her mandibles clicked slowly, thoughtfully. Feel things, she finally said. When I look at my empire, I feel pride. When I lose a soldier in battle, I feel sorrow. When someone challenges my authority, I feel anger. But I do not let these feelings show. I do not let them escape. They stay inside me. It sounds exhausting, Dang said. It is what I am, the Queen replied. It is what all are. Stood up and walked to one of the windows. Outside, he could see the crystal spars of the capital straightening toward a purple sky. Ships moved between the buildings like silver fish swimming through water. It was beautiful. It was also incredibly sad, he realized. A whole civilization that had never known laughter. A whole species that held every emotion inside and never let anything go. Her Majesty, he said slowly, can I ask you a personal question? You may ask, I may not answer. 400 years of rule, have you ever had anyone you could just talk to? Not as subjects talking to a queen, just as two people talking to each other. Silence that followed was longer than any that had come before. Dane turned from the window and saw something he had not seen before. The queen's posture had changed. She was no longer sitting perfectly straight. Her shoulders had dropped slightly. Her mandibles had stopped clicking. No, she said, I have not. I am the queen. Everyone I speak to is either serving me or wanting something from me. No one sees me as a person, they see me as the crown. That must be lonely, Dan said. Lonely? The queen repeated the word like she was tasting it. Yes, I think that is the correct word. I'm lonely. I did not know there was a word for this feeling until now. Walked back to his cushion and sat down. He looked at the queen, really looked at her for the first time. Not at the crown or the title or the power, just at her. A person who had spent 400 years alone at the top with no one to share the weight with, no one to laugh with, no one to see her as anything other than a ruler. I understand why you cannot laugh, Dan said. Laughter requires vulnerability. You have to let your guard down. You have to allow yourself to be surprised, to be silly, to be imperfect. You have spent 400 years being perfect, being in control, being the queen. You have forgotten how to be anything else. Queen's compound eyes reflected Danny's fate back at him. I do not know if I ever knew how to be anything else. I was born to rule. I was trained to rule. There was never a time when I was not the queen. Maybe that is where we need to start, Danny said. Forget about the jokes. Forget about the banana peels. Let us just talk, not as a queen and a human, just as two people who are both a little lonely and a little tired. Queen was still for a long moment. Then she did something that surprised Danny completely. She reached up and removed the silver crown from between her eyes. She set it on the table next to the drinks. Well, she said, my name is, when I was young before I took the throne, I used to watch the ships fly between the spires and imagine where they were going. I have never told anyone this. He smiled. My name is Danny. When I was young, I used to talk to myself in funny voices because I did not have many friends. I have never told anyone that either. The first time, something that might have been warmth flickered in the queen's compound eyes. Me more, she said. Tell me about the boy who talked to himself in funny voices. He settled back into his cushion. He had one day left, one day to make an alien queen laugh. But maybe laughter was not something you could force. Maybe it was something that happened naturally when two lonely people finally found someone to talk to. He began to tell her about his childhood in Austin, about his parents who fought all the time, about the comedy shows he watched late at night when he could not sleep, about the first time he made a stranger laugh and how it felt like he had discovered a superpower. Queen listened, and for the first time in 400 years, someone was talking to her like she was just a person. Gardens of Prime were filled with plants that glowed in the darkness. It was night now, the final night before the human delegation would have to face the council. Dane walked beside through paths made of crushed crystal that sparkled under their feet. She had not worn her crown since that afternoon in her chambers. Without it, she seemed smaller somehow, more real. Talked for hours. Danny had told her about Earth, about the oceans and mountains and cities filled with noise and chaos. Had told him about the ancient wars that had shaped her people, about the weight of ruling an empire that spanned 100 star system. They had talked about fear and loneliness and the strange comfort of finding someone who understood. But she had not laughed. Stopped walking and looked up at the alien sky. 2 moons hung overhead, one silver and one pale green. The stars were different here. He could not find any of the patterns he knew from Earth. Failed, he said quietly. Tomorrow the negotiations begin. You still have not laughed. The council will reject the alliance. My people will not get the minerals we need. Ambassador will throw me out an airlock. Beside him, her compound eyes caught the light of the wind moons. I've not failed, she said. You have given me something I did not know I was missing. These past 3 days talking with you, being seen as a person instead of a crown. This has meant more to me than you can understand. You have not laughed, Dang said. That was the whole point. I was supposed to teach you humor. I was supposed to make you understand what laughter feels like. Perhaps something cannot be taught, said. Perhaps something must be discovered. Turned to face her. He was so tired. He had tried everything he knew. Every joke, every technique, every trick he had learned in years of making strangers laugh in comic clubs. Nothing had worked. And now time had run out. And I asked you something, he said. You have asked me many things in these 3 days. Why stop now? I first made that comment about your rear end. What did you feel? In that moment when you heard me say those words, what happened inside you? Quiet for a long time. Her mandibles clicked slowly as she considered the question. I felt confused, she said. No one had ever spoken about me in such a way. I did not know how to process it. Then I felt something else. Something I did not recognize at first. It was like a flutter in my chest, like something wanted to escape but did not know how. Flutter, Dane said slowly. That was the beginning of a laugh. Your body wanted to laugh, but you did not know how to let it out. Do you let it out? Asked. How do you release something that has been held inside for so long? He thought about this. He thought about all the times he had laughed in his life, the big laughs and the small ones, the laughs that came from jokes and the laughs that came from something else entirely, the laughs that surprised him, the laughs that saved him. Force it, he said. Laughter is not something you decide to do. It is something that happens to you. It happens when you are surprised, when you see something true that you did not expect, when the gap between what you expect and what happens is so wide that your body does not know what else to do. Look at standing in the moonlight, the queen of an empire, the loneliest being he had ever met. someone who had spent 4 centuries holding everything inside. He thought about what might surprise her, what might create a gap so wide that she would have no choice but to let something escape. No, he said, after spending 3 days with you, I have to revise my original assessment. Let her head, what assessment? Your rear end said it was like ice, but I was wrong, it is not like ice at all. What is it like? Kept his face completely serious. It is more like really fancy marble, very prestigious, the kind of marble they use in important government buildings. If your rear end was a hewn building, it would be the Supreme Court. Did him? Her mandibles stopped clicking. Her compound eyes went wide. Did you just compare my butt to the Supreme Court? Did, Dang said, and I stand by it, very dignified, very judicial, the kind of rear end that makes important decisions. Things shifted in his face. Her mandibles twitched. Her body, which had been perfectly still for every moment Dang had known her, began to tremble slightly. It is the most ridiculous thing anyone has ever said to me, she said. Her voice sounded strange, higher than usual. I'm a ridiculous person, Dang said. I came to an alien planet and accidentally insulted the queen, but then I spent 3 days trying to teach her how to laugh. This is my life. This is what I do. I make stupid comments about important butts. Trembling's body grew stronger. Her mandibles were clicking rapidly now, faster than Dang had ever seen. A sound started to come from her throat. It was rough and strange, like rocks tumbling down a hill, like something that had been trapped for a very long time finally breaking free. Important butts, she repeated. The sound grew louder. Judicial rear ends, the Supreme Court of butts. And then it happened. Laughter. Not a hewn laugh. It was rougher, deeper, more like a series of clicks and rumbles than the sounds Dang was used to. But it was unmistakably louder. Her whole body shook with it. She put her forearms against her sides like she was trying to hold herself together. The sound echoed through the garden, scaring birds from the glowing trees. Started to laugh too. He could not help it. Watching this ancient, powerful, dignified queen shaking with laughter over a stupid but joke was the funniest thing he had ever seen. I do not know why this is funny, gasped Wing Clicks. It is stupid. It makes no sense to the Supreme Court of butts. That means nothing. Why it is funny, Dang said, wiping tears from his eyes. It means nothing. It is pure stupidity, and sometimes pure stupidity is the only thing that can break through 400 years of being serious. Laughter slowly faded, but she was still trembling. She looked at Dang with something new in her compound eyes, something that looked almost like wonder. That is what laughter feels like, she said softly. I feel lighter, like something heavy has been lifted from inside me, like there is space in my chest that was not there before. That is exactly what laughter feels like, Dang said, and now that you have done it once, it will be easier to do again. She out and touched Dang's shoulder with one of her forehands. Her touch was cool but gentle. Thank you, she said. You have given me something that no one else ever could. You have given me joy. He smiled. I gave you a dumb joke about your butt, but I am glad it helped. The sound that might have been another small laugh. Supreme Court, she said, shaking her head. I will never be able to sit on my throne again without thinking of this. Welcome, Dang said. That is what cultural liaisons are for, making queens think about their butts at inappropriate times. They stood together in the garden under the twin moons, and for the first time in 400 years, the queen of the empire smiled. The throne room was full again. Thousands have stood in their perked rows, watching as the human delegation faced the Council of Advisors. Ambassador stood at the front, her silver hair gleaming in the blue light, her diplomatic face firmly in place. Dane stood behind her, trying to look professional despite the fact that he had been up all night. Council of Advisors sat on raised platform below the throne. There were 12 of them, ancient whose shells had darkened with age. They had ruled alongside queens for generations. They did not trust change. They did not trust human. And they especially did not trust the human who had insulted their queen on the first day. Head advisor named rose to speak. His voice was dry and cold like wind over dead leaves. Council has discussed the matter of the human trade alliance. We have considered the benefits and the risks. We have weighed the value of crystals against the danger of allowing humans access to our space. Paused, his compound eyes scanning the human delegation. Have also considered the insult delivered to our queen by the human called Denny. Such disrespect cannot be overlooked. It speaks to the character of humanity as a species. They are chaotic. They are undisciplined. They say whatever comes to their minds without thought for consequence. Mr. stepped forward. Honored Council, I have already apologized for my colleague's words. His behavior does not represent the diplomatic values of Earth. We ask that you not judge our entire species by the actions of one man. Man who spoke directly to the Queen's physical form, said, one man who made what he calls a joke at her expense. This is not the behavior of a species ready for partnership with the Empire. Felt his heart sinking. Everything he had done over the past 3 days meant nothing if the Council rejected the alliance. He had made the Queen laugh, yes, but the Queen was not the only one who had approved the treaty. Doors at the back of the throne room opened. Queen entered, walking down the long path toward her throne, but something was different. Dane could see it in the way she walked. There was a lightness in her step that had not been there before, a looseness in the way she held her forearms. She looked like someone who had put down a heavy burden. Climbed the steps to her throne and turned to face the court. Her compound eyes swept across the room, pausing briefly on Dane before moving to the council. I've heard your recommendation, she said. Now you will hear my decision. With his head, of course, your majesty. The council advises, but the queen decides. Tall on her throne, her voice carried across the silent room. Days ago, a human made a comment about my body. He said my rear end was like ice. The council sees this as an insult. The council believes this shows that humans are disrespectful and unworthy of alliance. Paused. The silence in the throne room was absolute. The council is wrong. A ripple of shock passed through the watching. The council member exchanged glances. Mandibles clicked in surprise. His comment was not an insult, continued. It was a joke, and in the 3 days since he made the joke, he has taught me something that I did not know I was missing. He has taught me that connection between beings does not always come from formal words and careful protocol. Sometimes it comes from saying something unexpected, something silly, something that reminds us that we are all just people, regardless of our titles or our species. He stepped down from her throne and walked toward the council platforms. Built a great empire, we have conquered worlds. We have achieved things that other species only dream of, but we have done so without laughter, without joy. We have held everything inside and let nothing escape, and in doing so we have become isolated, cold, alone. Turned to face the human delegation. Humans have something we lack. They know how to release their emotion. They know how to find joy even in difficult times. They know how to connect with each other through humor and silliness and yes, through jokes about rear ends. This is not a weakness. This is a strength, and it is a strength that we can learn from. was from his seat, "Your Majesty, surely you cannot be suggesting that we model ourselves after humans. They are undisciplined. They are chaotic." Life said, "They are truly alive in a way that we have forgotten how to be. Last night in the Royal Gardens, I laughed for the first time in my 400 years of life, and in that moment, I felt more connected to the universe than I have in centuries of ruling an empire." Raised her voice so that everyone in the throne room could hear. "The trade alliance with Earth, but I propose something more. I propose a cultural exchange program. Humans will come to and teach us about humor, about joy, about the art of connection. In return, we will share our technology, our star charts, our knowledge of the galaxy. This will not just be a trade of minerals for goods. This will be a trade of something far more valuable. We will trade ways of being." Council was silent, the Whiting were silent, then slowly bowed his head. "If that is the Queen's decision, they all accept." Ambassador looked like she could not believe what was happening. She had come to negotiate a simple trade deal. Now she was witnessing the beginning of something much bigger. The ceremony ended and the crowds dispersed, found Dane standing by one of the great windows, looking out at the crystal spires of the capital. "You did it," he said. "You changed everything." "Did it," she corrected. "I could not have done that without you, without your stupid jokes and your willingness to see me as a person instead of a crown." He smiled. "So what happens now? You will have human comedians coming to teach how to laugh. Can you imagine? Stand-up comedy shows for a species that has never laughed before. It will be chaos." Chaos said, "The kind of chaos that leads to growth." Reached in a pouch at her side and pulled out a small crystal. It glowed with the same blue light as the walls of the palace. "This is for you," she said. "It is a communicating crystal. It will allow us to speak across any distance. I would like to continue our conversations if you are willing." Took the crystal carefully. It was warm in his hand, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. "I'd like that too," he said. "I will send you recordings of more comedy. You have a lot of catching up to do. 400 years of jokes to learn." "Look forward to it," said, and then she did something that surprised them both. She reached out and pulled Danny into an embrace. It was awkward and strange, her hard skeleton pressing against his soft human body, but it was also warm, real, true. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for teaching me how to laugh." Months later, Danny was back on Earth, sitting in his apartment in Austin, when his communicating crystal began to glow. He picked it up and his voice filled the room. "And she said, I have been practicing. I wish to tell you my first joke." And grinned. "Let me hear it." "Why did they cross the galaxy?" "I do not know why." "Get to the other side." There was a pause. Dan could hear waiting anxiously for his response. "Did I do it correctly?" she asked. Laughed. It was a terrible joke. The oldest joke in human history, translated across species and space, and still just as bad as it had always been. But it was a start. "You did great," he said. "You did absolutely great." Across the vast distance between Earth and Prime, Queen, who had never known laughter, smiled at the sound of her friend's voice and felt, for the first time in her long life, that she was not alone.